Welcome in to a post-game reaction show as I, Mike Schaefer, and joined by Michael Bruntz here of Husker247, are going to recap Nebraska's 40-7 win over UTEP here on Saturday. Uh, Bruntz, pretty clean, pretty efficient, pretty unlike the season openers we've been covering the last, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a no fuss game. There was the three plays where it seemed like UTEP was basically playing the game sped up, but other than that, it was pretty as you'd hope. I mean, it shouldn't come as shocking, but that's what complimentary football looks like, and it's been so long since we've seen it that that's kind of what we saw tonight. I mean, you just kind of go down the line, and we will a lot to feel good about with the way Nebraska played today going into the week one's always a little bit scary, but I thought Nebraska really kind of came in and took care of an overmatched opponent.
You go all the way back to December when Dylan Raiola commits to Nebraska, and you kind of let your mind wander. What is this going to look like? What is the offense going to look like? How can, a true freshman handle the expectations? Opening day for Dylan Raiola in his career, how do you feel like he played in his first Memorial Stadium performance?
Yeah, I mean, unflappable. I mean, I don't know that we've seen seniors play with that kind of poise at times.
Certainly haven't seen transfer quarterbacks play with that kind of
No,
poise.
that's been kind of a blind spot for Nebraska for a number of years. It's I think you kind of go to a few plays. I mean, the two touchdowns they obviously stand out. I never felt like there were maybe a couple of throws that he made where the ball was kind of in harm's way, but I thought other than that, did a pretty good job of valuing the ball. And that was what I was kind of curious about was this true freshman going to try with this great arm kind of trust himself a little too much. And you saw him go through his reads. The best throw of the day I thought he had was the one that went through Isaiah Nayer's hands
Yeah.
in that first quarter. But I think a big one, and Matt Rule highlighted this in postgame, was the long Emmett Johnson run. He checked a couple of different times into that run look to get Nebraska into a good spot. So I mean that's kind of 300, 400 level type stuff there, not a freshman making his first start.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the catch that wasn't with Isaiah Nayer, and I think we all kind of turned to each other in the press box and sort of bristled, like we just weren't used to seeing those kinds of throws coming from a quarterback that was playing for Nebraska. And I mean, even if you just focus on the ones that were completed, that touchdown pass to Nair, the first touchdown pass of his career, I mean, he drops that thing in perfectly so his receiver can catch that in stride. The ball lands, just over the outstretched arms of two defenders who end up colliding. Nair's able to keep his balance, finish it off for a touchdown. That ball, I think, traveled 51 air yards. Like that
Yeah.
was a fairly impressive pass in that situation. And Nebraska kind of jumped off from there. They had the safety that set up that drive and never looked back once it was 16-7 and pretty much just continued to build momentum from that point forward.
What was your sense? Some of the guys downstairs after the game talked about this, but the job that Nebraska's done, I mean, certainly Dylan Raiola deserves a lot of the attention today, but the job that they've done around him. I mean, when you talked about the transfer portal ads, you started 4 seniors on the offensive line today. I mean, what did you kind of make, I guess, kind of holistically of what the offense can be this year with this group?
I think when we were setting up why things could look good for Nebraska in 2024, we talked about the idea that it's a veteran team except at quarterback. And they have put together a good group of pass catchers. You have a veteran offensive line. You have guys that can move people and, for the most part, keep him upright and well protected. I mean, he wasn't really under duress most of the day. And when he was able to kind of feel it and get the ball out. I think he took 1 sack, if I'm thinking about it correctly here. But I think what we saw is that they have a lot of complementary pieces. They have a lot of pieces that can take advantage of his skill set. They have a lot of players that can make him better. And a perfect example of that, very end of the first half, he's able to put the ball up, and Jamal Banks just goes and high points it again with several defenders around him and goes and wins a 50-50 ball. We haven't seen a lot of that. We haven't seen Nebraska have quarterbacks that are comfortable doing that. We haven't seen an arm very often that can make that throw, let alone the 6'3" wide receiver that can go up and go get it. So they just have a good blend of high talent players around a really, really high potential quarterback. And it's a super unique picture. It's just not something we've seen a lot. I mean, even, when you think back to Adrian Martinez, it was such a different version. I mean, Dylan never ran today. Like, we didn't watch Nebraska have to have a quarterback be Superman because he could just distribute the ball, and that would allow everyone else to work around him. I mean, the offense is set up nicely. Obviously, one game just against UTEP, 11 more games to go. It's going to get more difficult, but a nice start and a good way to get your feet wet, and then to be able to just unload the bench. I mean, when's the last time they've been able to really truly do that?
It's been a while. That's a decent segue, I think, into the unloading the bench piece of it into a position group that, I mean, it was almost a little faceless today in some ways. But what did you make of the running backs? I think the order of appearance was a little bit different than maybe what we expected based on some fall camp comments. But how did you think that group showed itself? And do you think it matters? I don't know that you come out of today thinking that somebody is the guy for the rest of the year. And is that okay?
Yeah. I think that's okay. I mean, it blended well. I think they all had their individual moments. Irvin had the 2 short touchdown runs. It seems like maybe his role right now is going to be in the short yardage situation. I thought Emmett Johnson certainly had the longest run of the day. He looked effective when he was out there. Ramir looked good at times. He missed a couple holes that I think would have allowed for maybe easier first downs or conversions on third down and whatnot. But then you have Dante Dowdell, and he looked really good. And then he had that fumble. And I think that fumble is probably the only thing preventing us from talking more about him today, because I think he was on his way to having a pretty good game. I mean, if you think about how Nebraska was setting that game up, I don't think UTEP defenders were going to try to get in front of him a whole lot in the second half if he would have stayed in that game. So I think it was a largely successful day from the running backs. And then you ask yourself, could this be what it looks like week in and week out, and could they continue to be successful? And I don't see a reason why it couldn't. I mean, I've always been a big proponent of you got to have the guy. Well, if you have guys who can blend into their roles well, and you can smartly put them on the field and utilize them in those roles, you can still be successful. And I think they showed that today.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we talked to a lot of the backs after the game today, and there was a lot of conversation about the fact that they found easier running lanes because of what Nebraska was able to do or threatened to do in the passing game. I mean, it's Emmett Johnson kind of laughed, but I mean, he wasn't running against a 9 and a 10-man box today. I mean, that's no.
Didn't look like Iowa out there.
Yeah, so I mean that's a big thing, especially early on, to get the run game going. And I thought the offensive line played pretty well. The pile was always moving forward. I thought they gave Dylan enough time to make decisions. And, I think, the big question mark for a lot of people is how the running back room would look. And I think it's okay that competition continues. It's hard because when Dante Dowdell has that fumble, your mind immediately goes to what Matt Rule said of we've got enough talent to where we don't have to allow the turnovers to happen. But I kind of want to see some more of him based on how he ran today. So that'll be interesting to monitor this week and kind of see how that rotation changes a little bit.
He is definitely someone that he doesn't seem like he's going to just break away and have, a bunch of long touchdown runs, but he just feels like he could be a true hammer for you when you get into those Big Ten games and you just want to wear a team out in the second half, that you have that play in your back pocket. I mean, obviously, I think Nebraska is going to be not necessarily a super passing offense, but I think they're going to throw to set up the run, kind of like you talked about. And I think that's going to have a big effect on sort of how the rest of the offense can play around it. And Dowdell could be a really nice weapon. One thing that going forward, I'm curious to see if we get the running backs more involved in the passing game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You didn't really need to today. I mean, they did in some spots. You got the slots involved. You got Bonner involved. Carter Nelson was involved. I mean, it feels like the timing and things on the screen game and the short stuff can be there, which is something that Nebraska has not really had in its playbook for a while. I mean, everybody anecdotally knows that feeling of Nebraska trying to screen pass and nobody blocks anybody. It just looks disjointed, and I think that there's some of that they can get in the playbook and show a little bit more as the season goes along.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think the different route concepts can make them pretty effective being short or, trying to counteract the pass rush. And then, if you get teams focused on that, you're going to be able to go over the top with some of the speed and some of the game breakers you have at wide receiver. We didn't see a ton of deep balls today, but what we did see, Dylan Raiola has the arm to be able to hit those guys. And I think Nebraska has the receivers to take advantage of it. So I think Colorado is going to be a really, really fun game. To see what Nebraska's offense is capable of doing. I don't want to take too much away from what UTEP is going to try to do the rest of the year, but it's going to be a step up for Nebraska, regardless of how you feel about that Colorado defense. There's guys on that defense that are better than what they face today with UTEP, so that'll be something to see. Speaking of defense, Bruntz, Nebraska's defense gave up one touchdown, and from that point forward, I don't believe they gave up a drive longer than 28 yards the rest of the game. Multiple 3-and-outs. They were group rallying to the ball to tackle, just like you'd want to see. I mean, it was really nice because I think there was some concern there might be some drop off of what we saw last year. They looked like a much better fine-tuned version of last year's defense at times today.
Yeah, and you saw the depth in certain spots. I mean, Nebraska was running what was essentially its third defensive line out there at times when the game was still in doubt. And I mean, there's a little bit of a drop off, but not huge. And the safety was obviously a big turning point today. That was something that when they needed a play, the defense made one. And as Ty Robinson was quick to point out in the post game, they're +1 in turnover margin for the season, which has been a huge goal for them. So there's a lot to take away. I mean, I'm eager to see going forward. I mean, one area of concern is the inside linebacker depth. That was a group that by virtue of injury and kind of having to rotate, they rotated a ton last year, and they got 4 or 5 guys in there. I don't know that they have. I don't know that they have 4 right now that there's an even level there. So that's one thing to kind of look at. But yeah, I mean, I think they were kind of everything that you hope they would be against a team that was pretty overmatched. I mean, the tempo was kind of a concern, and that one drive, it was just like they turned fast forward on in that scoring drive, and Nebraska didn't really react to it very well. But I think you saw Nebraska just kind of settle in a little bit and just kind of keep playing football. And I mean, they didn't let UTEP hang around too long. What did you make? What did you make out of the pass rush without having to send pressure? Because that's been a big talking point.
Yeah, I think it was a tough game to see it. I mean, UTEP only had 26 dropbacks. They had a lot of 3-step drops. The ball was getting out really quickly. I don't think they were really wanting to try to challenge Nebraska in that way. And so, I think they got a little bit of pressure. They flushed the quarterbacks out of the pocket a few times where they had to roll right and took off for a couple scrambles. But for the most part, I mean, I think Nebraska was fine up front. It's so hard because your brain is so wired to want to talk about this Colorado game. And all I keep thinking about is the concepts of how Colorado is going to pass. They're going to look to try to get down the field. So they need to block for a lot longer than what UTEP was trying to do today. And I think that's going to open up more opportunities for the Cam Lenharts and the MJ Shermans. And MJ Sherman had a really nice pressure. He's a guy, I didn't give him a game ball, but he was someone that he stood out to me a lot. Like that was a guy who, he had some moments last year, but he was mostly just kind of a guy who was out there helping your defense, part of the second unit. This game, I really, I thought he really kind of showed up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and Mackay Bayer, who I did give the game ball to, he was all over the field. I mean, they have a lot of really interesting pieces. What was fascinating is the game, the way it played out. You didn't get a lot of Isaac Gifford. You didn't get a lot of Deshaun Singleton. You didn't get a lot of, I mean, because they just weren't attacked in the deeper part of the field. I mean, everything was largely kept in front of them, and those guys were just part of 5-6 black shirts just rallying to the ball over and over and over.
Yeah, two guys stood out to me on defense. MJ Sherman was one. I mean, I think he's kind of elevated his play from what we saw last year. He looks physically different too. Like I think his second year in the strength program has done him a lot of good. I thought John Bullock had a great game. I mean, it seemed like he was around the ball a lot too.
Yep.
He's going to have to play a lot more this year than what he did a year ago, and he seemed like he was ready for the fight today. I was impressed by him because he's another guy too. I mean, you have to consider, this is his second full season as a linebacker. There's a learning curve there. If you're going to be a developmental program, there's room for guys like John Bullock to get better from where they were a year ago. So I think those guys stood out the most to me defensively. That are not the defensive linebackers. I mean, Ty Robinson was great today, as you would hope, but I thought the linebackers that they did lean on, I thought had a pretty nice game today.
Okay. When did you have to pinch yourself to see if you were dreaming when you saw Isaiah Garcia Castaneda on multiple punt returns have a little space in front of him today? 25 yards returning on punts. That's not, otherworldly, and yet that's more than half of Nebraska's total punt return yardage for the entirety of the 2023 season.
Yeah, Nebraska said they were going to be aggressive with it, and I don't know if that total is aggression or not, but
around here it seems super aggressive,
very aggressive. No, I mean it was almost kind of like that feeling you're looking for a flag almost right away. Because
is this legal?
Somebody must have gotten blocked in the back at some point, but no, I thought the punt return game was fine. Kickoffs, they had the kickoff out of bounds. The Alvano whole thing, I think, is probably going to go into the season. But I thought special teams was okay today. I mean, I thought they did what they needed to do. They caught the punts. I didn't see what the final field position situation was for Nebraska today. I have to assume they won it, but that's I mean, if you're thinking about it like a bar stool, certainly the offense and defense held up their end, and special teams was not taken away from that. So that's a win in my book.
Yeah. Before we turn to some of the comments from the message board users, I do want to ask you this. They were able to flood the bench today. What young guy that got in were you kind of excited to get eyes on, or you thought maybe had a flash play or two?
Well, Ramir Stewart, he had the pick. He's a guy that when you look at Nebraska's starting 11, I mean, it's all veteran guys, single-digit guys, and then they get young in a real hurry. And, I mean, a play like that probably helps a young guy, kind of maybe take that next step. And they're going to need him. I mean, they're going to need some safety depth this year. So that one was noteworthy. It was kind of cool talking to Jalen Gramstad after the game. I mean, he, in June was trying out at Nebraska's camp, and all of a sudden he's in the game today in front of a bunch of friends and family. He was pretty blown away by that. That was a pretty cool moment. But I think probably Stewart was one that really kind of caught my eye for the way he was playing. Obviously the pick and whatever. Was there somebody that stood out to you in that second group that is worth noting?
I mean, there was certainly Carter Nelson. I mean, just going from last year, watching that guy play 8-man quarterback for Ainsworth, and everything that entails, to now he's playing wide receiver in Memorial Stadium, doesn't look out of place despite just looking like a giant relative to what he's standing around. And then you kind of saw like they had these quick throws to him where it's like, okay, we're gonna let you try to tackle him one-on-one, and he's got some moves to him. I mean, he's not someone who's just gonna just try to run and power anybody over. He was trying to juke around some of these defenders, and so that was kind of fun to see. And then this is both a feel-good moment and also just a reminder, because sometimes when these guys come in, they get hurt and you forget about them. It was really nice to see Maverick Noonan just blow up a play at the end of the game. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a guy that I think they're excited about long term. There's, deep position where he's at, but he's someone that was a good high school player here in the state of Nebraska, had that early injury last year, kind of fell out of everybody's, thought process. And so to see him at Memorial Stadium, where his dad used to play, and then he goes and has a TFL in his first game, that was a pretty cool moment as well. So that was nice. I mean, we joke about it. We talk about like all the missed bowl practices and all of these things. The other part of Nebraska's downfall over these last 8 years, they just haven't had games like this. They haven't been able to give guys easy opportunities to just go play and get
Mm-hmm.
some reps, to kind of get the butterflies out, to get out and go play. And so cannot stress enough how important it is to have that kind of easy flood the bench type game here in your opener.
On Carter Nelson too, I appreciate that on the opening kickoff he gets flagged for a illegal blindside block. He was looking to hit somebody, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's grab some of these comments here from Husker247. I basically just threw it out there. I wanted to see what people were saying about the game. And from Husker fan 697, first time in years I've never felt uncomfortable at all in the game. Team seemed very well coached, and again, for the first time in years, responded well after the Miners tied the game. Excited for next week even more than I was already. What else do we got here today? From Soze, I'm probably mispronouncing how people would want their username pronounced, but I don't know if you're really ever supposed to say it out loud, so who knows. But he said, good start, clean game, played a ton of guys for development, intrigued what the second week jump will look like. Matt Rule kind of said that. I don't know if you were in there, Bruntz, but he, one of my favorite stock quotes from a coach is that the biggest jump for the season is week 1 to week 2.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska came out and played a pretty good week 1. It'll be really interesting what that week 2 looks like.
Yeah, hopefully not reading the press clippings, right? People still do that.
I don't know. I mean, are we considered press clippings?
I don't believe we are. Certainly clippings, that's for sure.
Yeah. From Scott Tenderman, I'm really trying not to let my expectations get too high yet, but we did what a good team is supposed to do. We were dominant. Oh, and Raiola is real. I mean, that's got to be the other takeaway from the day is we talked about it right at the beginning, but that's what a 5-star quarterback is supposed to look like, right?
Yeah. Well, I assume so. I don't know.
Well, we wouldn't know, really. This is the first one I've ever covered.
That's what I've been told, yes.
So, any final thoughts from you, Bruntz?
No, comfortable win. It's Colorado week officially. I appreciated that as they were walking into the tunnel after the game, the PA announcer, was saying when the next game is, and they noted that the opponent was Colorado, and they were lustily booed. So the week is already off to a good start.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun week. It's going to be a ton of content at Husker247. There's a ton of content right now from the game. We got report cards, we got game balls, we have conversation starters, we have other thoughts from how the game played out. We're going to have stories from the players and the coaches and everything else. We're going to have another podcast tomorrow. Kevin Kugler will be joining me for the Sunday side session. I'll be curious what he thought, what he saw from Nebraska today, and of course, content throughout the week. And pretty big visit weekend coming up here, Nebraska, Colorado. So going to be some names in town. We're hoping to have all that coverage as well at Husker247. So for Michael Bruntz, I'm Mike Schaefer. We are Husker247. Appreciate your time joining us here tonight, and we will catch you next time.